So today I read a story, Stan Greenberg, a big pollster on the Democratic side, with a revelation about the demographics in this election that I think are hugely important. So in 2012, so last presidential elections, the people in these categories that lean Democratic were 51% of the electorate. So it was secular voters, single women, minorities, and millennials. Okay, so now they don't all vote Democratic, but they lean heavily Democratic. Okay, but they were only 51%, but it was enough for President Obama to overcome Mitt Romney, and of course, the substance of the election mattered as well, of course.
But now
those four categories are 63% of the electorate.
Drums.
Okay, so the demographics have changed in a disastrous way for the Republican Party. They still don't know it. So we now have more minorities as a percentage of the country than we did in 2012, but the Republicans are like, I hate the Mexicans even more. I can't stand the Mexicans and the Latinos and all that stuff. You're killing yourself. You've done more damage than you know, you dumb son of a bitch. Yeah. Okay, and then, so that's minorities. But what's interesting is the growth of two categories, which is millennials and secular voters, right? Because more people are losing their religion every single day. We cover it on the show all the time. Secular voters, when they hear the Bible thumping going on the Republican side, I mean, they go to those debates with each armed with a Bible, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, bam. They start hitting each other with it. Oh, I love God more. And here, let me quote the Bible. I'm going to do, Ben Carson, I'm going to do my whole tax system based on the Bible, which, by the way, he's wrong. It's not based on the Bible. I did a story on that. Actually, the Bible wanted to tax a lot more, let alone the fact that Jesus said, give away all your worldly possessions. Okay. Anyway, but they do the Bible thumping. But that used to work. It doesn't work as well with the demographics as we have them, right? And then on millennials, the most progressive generation in American history. And now there are more millennials than baby boomers. They're in for a world of hurt, okay? So that's why these debates are pretty important on the Democratic side. Tonight we had a forum on MSNBC because if the demographics hold, I mean, they obviously are going to hold, but if they're as relevant as we think they might be, right? Well, you're looking at the people who might be president exclusively on the Democratic side. So now there could be a scandal for Hillary Clinton and a populist movement that Trump captures or Cruz, God help us. I think Rubio could have so much more money than Bernie Sanders. So there could be an upset. It's not like, hey, it's over, go home, the Democrats definitely won. No way, right? But all things being equal, the president is far more likely to come over from the Democratic side than the Republican side.
The interesting thing, Cenk, is that you're talking about how after the loss to Barack Obama, they did the diagnosis or the
reflection,
the crisis report on what's wrong with the Republican Party. And they said, we got to stop talking to people this way. We have to reach out, be inclusive. And they're doing the exact opposite. Like you pointed out, they hate minorities even more. And they're like, why would they do it? This is the unintended consequence of having a right-wing bubble, right? So it hurts them in the long run. Fox News hurts them right now. Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Red State Drudge is hurting the Republicans right now. Because Ben Carson, when he was being interviewed on CNN and he was making the case, you guys never vetted Obama, he literally believed that because he lives in that bubble, right? And so this is more proof that they live in this bubble. It's going to kill them in the general. It works in congressional districts because of gerrymandering, but it's not going to work this time. I think I read that same article. I saw the same thing. I'm like, the Democrat. We already know going in, the Democrats have such a huge advantage in the Electoral College.
The only thing I would say, I would nuance a bit if I could be the person to defend the Republican Party here. I think that one of the reasons the Republican establishment, including quite a bit of Fox News, not Sean Hannity, he's off, in the fields, but the establishment hates Trump and hates Carson to a lesser extent, is because they are torpedoing that strategy. I don't think that the Republican Party is doing anything to reach out to and to appeal to Hispanic Americans or any number of other demographic groups. But at least they're not saying we should round up and deport every single one of them. We should split up families. We should create a gigantic wall and somehow in fantasy land get the Mexican government to pay for it. They want to just do nothing. But Trump and Carson say, fuck them, get rid of them. And I think that's why they're trying to sink the campaigns of those people and go for someone like a Rubio or a Bush, who is much more reasonable when it comes to those sorts of communities, those sorts of issues. I don't know that they're going to be able to do it, but that's why you see this huge fight between the extremists, the more extremists, and the normal extremist establishment Republicans.
Yes, but also the Fox News is the people who marginalize guys like Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio, who have reasonable positions on these things. So they're the people who continue to marginalize those guys, and that is the effect. So I am still right.
Well, I wasn't saying that you were wrong. Overall, the conservative side doesn't seem to understand the math on the wall. They don't understand the flow of history. But I do think that there's crazy, and then there's let's kill them all crazy.
Right.
So last thing to Jimmy's point on that, which is that there's some people like Cruz and Fiorina on the Republican side who are saying, hey, let's do debates hosted by Rush Limbaugh, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin.
Glenn Beck.
These tiny little blogs, right, that are around now. And that's because they're in the bubble. Like, yes, those guys do affect some primary voters, and so that's what they're obsessed about because they're in the primary. But as a percentage of the population, oh my God, they're minuscule. They're minuscule. So they're appealing to the base of the base of the base. And I get their rationale for wanting to do that in a primary, but you're killing yourself in the general election. I mean, if you take any blog from Red State, just any random one, and you read to the American people are like, I'm voting against that.
Yes.
Whatever that is, I'm against it.
Correct.
Right? So, and that's why Dick Cheney, when he left office, had a popularity rating of 13%. Don't forget that, right? The American people are not insane right-wingers like these Republicans. Final point on that, then when you look at the Democratic side, don't panic about whether Bernie Sanders is electable. The Democratic candidate will have an enormous advantage demographically, quote unquote, even if it's Bernie Sanders. The one thing that could do you in is some sort of big scandal. Well, that's more likely to affect Hillary Clinton than Bernie Sanders. So if you're looking at the demographics, the safer bet in some ways could be Bernie Sanders.
Wait, if what you're worried about is a gigantic scandal that could sink the whole thing, go for Lincoln Chafee, who in all of his decades of public service has never once had a scandal.
That was his big claim to fame.
He said it multiple times.
That's right.
I've said no to temptation, and temptation said I wasn't even talking to you.